Good morning, everyone. Welcome for a new episode of Catchup with the Clergy. Today I want to talk a little bit about Lourdes. And of course we say Lourdes to our parish, what is true. But I want to talk about the town of Lourdes in French. The town where in 1858 the Virgin Mary appeared to Bernadette Soubirous. Bernadette, a little 14-year-old girl, she's right in front of me here. On February the 11th, 1958, Bernadette was out with a couple of other kids looking for wood close to the river the Gave. She was looking for firewood. And then all of a sudden a little breeze drew her attention, and so Bernadette looked what it was, and then she saw Our Lady for the first time. And that happened about, I would say, it's 18 times. 18 times between February the 11th, 1858 and July the 16th, 1858, Our Lady appeared 18 times to Bernadette. And a little bit more about Bernadette. Bernadette was a very simple girl. She was not great in academics. She came from a very poor family. Her father was a miller, but he was not very successful. Eventually the mill went bankrupt, and the family Soubirous had to move to another place, and they ended up in the former local prison. And that's mainly one big room where the whole family used to live together. I have been there in that place, and it is really poor. It is really simple. So the whole family lived together in that one room apartment, and they struggled a lot. Bernadette's father was falsely accused from stealing. They suffered a lot of poverty, and then when Bernadette had the apparitions, well, that was not easy either, because the authorities didn't want to believe her. The pastor of Lourdes initially didn't want to believe her. The mayor of Lourdes didn't want to believe her. They put her even in prison for some time. They wanted to stop these apparitions. So people were pretty critical to her. And eventually Bernadette got trustworthy. Because she said in a sort of a French dialect that Our Lady said, "I'm the Immaculate Conception." And that was a sort of a proof for the pastor. How does this child, who can barely read, how does this child know this word? And today many of us know this word, and it sounds very familiar for us. But then it was all new. That was not common faith at that time. The dogma was declared by the Pope just a couple of years before, so it was not common faith. So that Bernadette, the little child, knew that word, Immaculate Conception, and also in the dialect of her own town, that made the priest curious. And then step by step he started to believe, and eventually she got also the faith of the bishop. Mary asked for a procession with lights, and that's still going on. Every evening in Lourdes they have a procession with candlelights. Thousands of people, they walk in a procession, they go over the place in Lourdes, and they end up at the grotto of Massabielle, the grotto where Our Lady appeared to Bernadette. when I first got to Lourdes, I was invited by a priest, and I was still a seminarian. And this priest was very, very into Lourdes, and he invited me and he said, "You have to go there." And I was very critical about it. I think my faith was focused on Christ, studying theology. You study Christ, you think about Him, you pray to Christ, but he invited me to come to Lourdes, and I did, even though I was critical. But then in Lourdes it changed. I realized this is a place where the gospel gets alive. This is a place where the sick go first, and they are literally in the first row. So they create place for the sick and the disabled and the elderly people. They sit in front with every mass. They sit in the first row. People give time and effort to take care of the sick and the poor and the disabled. Many volunteers, nurses, priests, doctors, kitchen people. They give their time, they give their energy to help these people. And I really think this is what Jesus talks about in the gospel. So Lourdes is a place where the gospel gets alive. And well, this year, because of the pandemic, Lourdes is struggling. Not many people go there, and but yeah, I hope to go again to Lourdes, and especially with a group of people. Once I went there by myself, and that was a good experience, but it was not as great as the times I went with a group, because when you go with a group, you have that community experience. Our faith is about community. Our faith is not. It is not just about me and God and me. It is about us and God and us. So, yeah, if you haven't been to Lourdes, I would recommend to put it on your bucket list, really, because it's a great place. It's so peaceful, it's so prayerful, it's a gospel experience. Thank you for listening, and I wish you a very nice day.